Hello, BookTube, and welcome back. So, I'm going to do another sort of book review again, more of my opinions on a book, and then a quick synopsis of what the book is. This is another non fiction book, and it's a military history book. I love military history, and this is The Vietnam War by Geoffrey Wawro. Now, caveat, I am a big fan, a big fan of reading books about Vietnam. I have a whole section on my bookshelf just on the Vietnam War. I don't know why I pulled it out. I love military history anyway, but there's something about the Vietnam War which spikes my interest. Don't know why. It just happens. Okay. What the author's trying to get is just giving you a overview of the military history of Vietnam and how things quickly fell apart. So he spends a very brief time talking about the French occupation of Vietnam because it was a former colonial power, and that's pretty much the first part of the Vietnam War is the Vietnamese fighting the French. And that's one of the downsides of this book, because that's why it's still good, don't get me wrong. That's why I think I prefer Max Hastings or even Ken Burns' overarching look at the Vietnam War, because it does focus more on the French fighting the Vietnamese as well. And it goes on from there, to the DM and then his assassination in the early 60s, and how JFK was also trying to not get too involved, but also being wary of the spread of communism, till his assassination, and then LBJ finally getting boys on the ground in Vietnam. It discusses also all the key battles of the Vietnam. So it talks about Tet, for instance, and Mini Tet, and all on Hamburger Hill, and it discusses all that and what was happening on the ground at the time, and the lies that the generals and then the politicians were saying to the American public, saying we're winning this war, body count is going up, the Viet Cong is going down. Where it just wasn't. It was just lies. It also talks about some of the massacres that happened. That's why people, I think, generally kind of avoid books on Vietnam, because it gets quite dark. It does get quite dark. The My Lai massacre, for instance, wasn't a great shining moment of American history, but the author, he's delivered it. It's such a great overlook at the Vietnam. It's not just focusing on what was going on in South and North Vietnam at the time as well. It's also talking what was happening, in the States with LBJ just not knowing what to do, not wanting to look weak, and then eventually going into Nixon. Nixon stabbing him in the back, sabotaging his peace talks with the Viet Cong, and then hey ho, when Nixon got in the office, he didn't know what to do either. And then the eventual downfall of Nixon from Watergate, and then Gerald Ford just washing his hand and wrapping the whole business up. The author's done a really excellent job of pulling all the facts together of the story he wants to tell, because he really wants to focus on the military history here, and he's delivered very well. He's got all the major talk heads, what they were saying at the time, what they were saying behind the scenes at the time as well, and then comparing and contrasting what was happening with the military, because the American military started to fall apart a bit through the draft, and there was absolutely just the winning out. What's winning? That's what Vietnam never really answered. What does winning look like? And that's why they came up with the whole body count thing, which fell apart quite quickly, as you can imagine. And it also talks about the racial issues that the army faced, and officers being murdered also by the people who just didn't want to go out there anymore and fighting up front. And also a slight negative about this book, but I'm not really sure, because I don't think the author's intention was to do this anyway, and that's why Max Hastings' books is also a really excellent book. He also talks about what the Viet Cong were saying at the time, and the messages from Hanoi, and the communist China and what was going on in Moscow as well, because they were feeding guns to the Viet Cong. It also discusses, their invasion of Camp, what Kissinger did. He wanted to get into Kissinger and Nixon. He wanted to get into Laos and Cambodia and start bombing them as well, which turned out to be an excellent idea, didn't it? But yeah, this is a really, really well done overlook of the Vietnam War, focusing primarily on the key battlegrounds. So go and pick it up if you're into your military history, especially your modern day military history and some of the lies that go on throughout wars. Pick up this book. It's really, really well done, and that's Geoffrey Wawro, The Vietnam War.